Volko Ruhnke, designer of Labyrinth, The War on Terror. I am a retired CIA analyst and spent about 30 years in the intelligence community in the analytic realm, including the last 10 years or so of my career as a trainer of other analysts. And in that capacity was able to bring board wargaming into my work for classroom training and also for analytic research, and not just the kind of what we would call seminar games where there's sort of discussion that's very common in the defense and intelligence community, but literally board games that modeled whatever important aspects of the world we were trying to understand better. And I developed the view that board games, in addition to being a lot of fun, were extremely powerful in helping even experts boil down and understand and experiment with the dynamics of complex human affairs. And of course, terrorism and counterterrorism is an example of that kind of human endeavor. You can use a game like any experiment. It's a model, it's a simplified model, but it's a model of reality that you can't experiment on, right? I mean, we can't experiment on the politics of a country. Whatever is going to happen is going to happen. And so if you're let's say a political scientist or a political analyst, how do you conduct experiments that will show you something about some hypothesis? Well, if you have a model like a game, and board games included, you can do that. You can say, well, what if we try this, or what if that protagonist tries that, or what if we add some forces over here, or make something happen as a stimulus to the system? What do people in those roles do when they operate according to some rules that we think, from our expert view of the real world, represent the real world well enough? So that's one. That would be a research game. But the purpose actually that I was most involved in was for training. And what we're doing with simulation games when we're trying to train analysts is, here is a complex system that is hard to understand. You may not be exactly expert in it, but it's something you need to know something about. Let's say a certain form of government or the politics in a certain region. And now we can consult experts, design a game that reasonably models those dynamics, have students, that is analytic trainees, play that game in the classroom, and then talk about, okay, so what happened, why, what does that tell us about how the system out there works? We're not really running experiments. We're trying to familiarize analysts with a simplified version of what is a very complex dynamic affair, and a board game is a great accessible way to do that. And then critically ask them, so where do you think this model gets it wrong? Because every game is a simplification, right? Of course the board game doesn't represent everything correctly, completely. It's because humanity is too complex. But once then the students start talking about, well, where does this model not equate with reality as I know it? They're discussing with each other how the real world works through the context of this shared structure of the board game. That's what I found very effective, to not so much experiment with students, but get them to understand and think about a system of complex intermoving parts, and to be able to talk about that in a structured way.